Welcome to the October 2025 State of the Union. We do have caging results from our DC Metro caging facility. And September was a very good month for direct mail revenues. Revenue up 33%, contributions up 18% across. So those are across 102 organizations. You had those increases. And I know everyone always likes to see what the sector breakdown is on those. By and large, broad-based rally, education is and veteran services were the only two where revenue has gone down. Veteran services organizations, not because this is just our DC Metro facility, we don't have as many VSOs there. So take that number with a grain of salt. Everyone else, faith communities, flat, everyone else seeing significant growth. Not terribly surprising to see public broadcasting leading the way with 133% increase in revenue, obviously with special appeals going out. And we'll talk about one very special appeal in the potpourri section of this, but special appeals going out to compensate for the loss in federal funding that they are experiencing right now. But significant increases across a number of different sectors. And for once, contributions actually went up by more than average gift did. So average gift generally going up, except among faith communities and education, but up 12%, whereas donations were up 18%. Good month overall on the mail side of things. Hopefully it is a sign of things to come and not a one-time up, and maybe those revenues were taken out of October or something like that. Any questions on any of that? Okay, then going into a Bank of America study of some of their wealthier donors. So this study is a sample of about 1,500 wealthy US households. How do they look at wealthy? Wealthy in their mind is a net worth of $1 million or more, excluding their residence, or annual household income of $200,000 a year or more. So these donors give an average of $33,000 a year to charity. That's more than 10 times the average giving level. But like the general trend, seeing this decline in giving among the wealthy up by 30%, but participation down 10 percentage points. 91% of these folks used to give, 81% now give, paralleling what we're seeing among the general population. Volunteering down about the same amount on a percentage basis. It used to be 50%, now 43% among the wealthy. Obviously, a big reason that there wasn't a lot of volunteering in 2020. Not a shock there. Generally speaking, people said they are giving based on who they are, not who the organization is. So personal values, number one, first-hand experience, number three, and then the issue areas, number two. Nonprofit measures, it's recognizable, it's trusted, there's a perceived need. Those fell farther down the list. And so this does parallel what we see among the general population. People have particular giving identities that you're tapping into, either the experience or with the organization or tying into their donor identity. I personally believe that this is an area, speaking as someone who worked for 14 years at Mothers Against Drunk Driving and has lost 3 different people in 3 different drunk driving crashes, speaks to my experience here, other than the wealthy part. Still working on that. Where do these people support? Basic needs, number one, religious organizations, number two, and healthcare medical, number three. That's the percentage who are donating. However, when you look at the money going to these, religious is significantly higher, basic needs, number two, and higher education comes in at number three. So not as many people giving to higher education, but people giving higher gifts to higher education. This by and large this probably doesn't include a lot of the I am donating to get my name on a building level giving, but isn't far away from that sort of thing. On average, these affluent donors gave to 5 different organizations in a year, and 79% of it said they were supporting at least one in their local community. Other items of note from the study, 46% said they make charitable decisions together as a couple. 11% said they make some together. That leaves 43% that either aren't part of a couple or make the gift charitable decisions themselves. Giving vehicles like DAFs are used by 18%. That's up from 11% 9 years ago. 24% of these households do have a vehicle, which means that there are 6% of these folks that have a vehicle but didn't use it last year. 73% of those people, those poor people who are merely wealthy, but their wealth is still under $1 million, get out your violins, did donate, compared with 87% who have $5 million or more. And those who had $5 million or more, their average gift was nearly 3 times larger. Now, those of you doing the math are saying, wait, they have wealth 5 million or more compared with those under $1 million, but their average giving was only 3 times larger. Yes, generally speaking, as people get wealthier, the percentage of income that they or wealth that they give goes down. And that yes, these donors give an average of $33,000 a year. Your donor who's living on a fixed income of $50,000, on an income of $50,000 who writes you a $50 check is likely giving you a greater percentage of their wealth and their income than these folks. But there's the old saying about why do you rob banks? It's where the money is. So these opportunities are significant. Now, there are 81% giving means that there are 19% who don't give. Of those 19% who don't give, 42% are younger. Bank of America put a spin on the ball to say, now when you ask these people about their values, they say they are living philanthropically in other ways. They're giving to people, they're conscious consumers and those sorts of things. However, I also think there's the flip side of that is they may not yet be trained to give. Now, younger donors, always tougher to train to give. There's usually the discussion of at that point in your life, you don't have these means. These are people who have means who are not necessarily giving. So want to be able to build that behavior if we can. Any questions on this study? Okay, kicking it over to AI. Just a wonderful chart from Charter. Data centers are about to eclipse office construction for the first time ever, obviously, but a real show of we discovered during the pandemic we may not need the building, and so offices have fallen since then. We do need the data centers to be able to accomplish what we want to accomplish. A sea change that is a significant one. Recent study out about asking Americans what people were okay with AI doing, and they gave them a repugnance score, which are the most repugnant if an AI were doing it compared with the least repugnant. So it's fine in most people's mind if AI does the job of file clerks and search marketing strategists and transportation planners and cashiers, but we don't want them doing our religious ceremonies, doing childcare, therapy, funeral attendants. Barbers, actors have obviously been one of the more outspoken about AI coming into their sphere. And so there are these zones where you have the green zone down here are AI can do it, and it's fine with people generally if AI does it. So search and marketing strategists are a great example of this. Considering this is a study by economists, I do find it terribly amusing that economists are down there. AI can do your job, and it's fine with everyone if they do that. In the complete opposite side of things is it can't do the job, and it would be repugnant if they can. Nannies, bailiffs, surgeons. Up in the upper, you have they can do the job. They can be a school psychologist or a legislator or a fraud examiner. We just don't want those folks doing it. And in the lower left, you have we'd be fine if they were gambling dealers or cashiers, but AI can't do that effectively right now. So this is the jobs that are, it says tasks, but this is the jobs that are exposed to AI. It did remind me of another study from Stanford about what tasks we would be willing to do, because a lot of what AI is going to do is take some of the tasks away from us, but not necessarily the jobs. And so green light zone, same sort of thing. How much do workers in that job want that task taken away? And AI can do it. So quality control, mechanical engineers, reading reports, that sort of thing. There are also things that AI can do, but the workers in those jobs don't want them to do it, preparing meeting agendas or doing contacting potential vendors. And then there's this opportunity zone of workers would be fine if it's doing it, but AI can't do it effectively right now, like a computer scientist, like doing video game design. So 46% of tasks got positive ratings that yes, AI could take this away from me. And the top reason that people said for this is the one that people talk about. 69% of people said, I want to free up time for high value work. We want to automate scheduling and data entry and filing. We don't want to automate writing and creative work and decision making. So most people are looking for that partnership with AI, not full automation of job duties. And a lot of those tasks are things that AI can do well that we want to get rid of. Eric Brynjolfsson of the Stanford Digital Economy Lab put it this way. We can deploy autonomy right now for scheduling, for reminders. Heck, Outlook already does that without AI, maintaining the database and standardizing reporting. And then there's this, we want to assist with care and therapy, but not on the care and therapy side of things. We want it to do the intake summaries and we want it to do all of the paperwork associated with it. The moral floor is consistent across both of the studies. Caregiving, therapy, spiritual work, guidance are generally off limits for AI. Microsoft had an interesting, helpful read. We did do a full white paper on this if you want a more extensive treatment, but how do you optimize your content so that you get seen in AI search results? So do recommend that blog post to folks if you are interested. And that's a great segue into the search side of things. Google is still 210 times bigger than ChatGPT in search. So yes, this used to be 343 times back when I first talked about it, but Yahoo and DuckDuckGo are still managing more searches than ChatGPT. Now, how does that break out? July, it's doing 2.5 billion prompts per day, but not all of those are search-like prompts. A lot of that's coming from API calls, so businesses are going into ChatGPT and automating things. And then Harvard worked with OpenAI to say 21% of prompts are search-like. So there are 66 million search intent prompts on ChatGPT. Google does 14 billion per day. Big difference in scale. That said, OpenAI is making different types of answers available. So 79% of all prompts are not search-like. There are people looking for data in other sorts of ways. And so it's making the pie of retrieval bigger. And this goes to another study from SEMrush, which highly recommend. They looked at people who were using ChatGPT for the first time, month cohorts, and saying, how many Google sessions do you have per week? And instead of going down and replacing it, it actually expanded search. People who started using ChatGPT used Google search a little bit more. So this was US only, and they looked at sessions 90 days before and 90 days after. And so you see graphs like this by cohort. So no ChatGPT use. Oh my goodness, I used it for the first time and it trails off a little bit. Interestingly, Google searches spike as ChatGPT use spikes, and it goes down, but not to the level it was before. So they do work together. The future isn't zero sum. Search isn't necessarily dying. ChatGPT isn't replacing Google just yet. They're working together to we're now using more resources to get more information out. Microsoft ended its social impact grants. They'll be done at the end of November. You'll have 45 days to use grants if you had them. And if you have campaigns going on, you want to make sure that you are pausing them because they will then switch over to charging you for those ad campaigns. Google has sponsored results, and there's now I'm going to pause right here, hide sponsors results button, both on desktop and on mobile. So now you'll have to scroll through all of your sponsored results, all of your ads to get to the bottom, but people will be able to hide them immediately after. So I do anticipate that probably slight decreases in click-throughs on Google Ads. Not the most important thing that Google had out, but they've switched their logo from flat colors to the ombre on right to more reflect a spectrum rather than clearly delineated colors. Any questions on AI or search? Okay, a couple of interesting things happening in the media world. Hollywood Reporter reported on this, the studies from Parrot Analytics, and they found that movies as a percent of streaming revenue, more than half of most streamers, or about half of all streamers' revenues. Disney Plus is the outlier. Movies are always a larger portion of their streaming revenue. One of the commenters I saw on this said Disney Plus should be called Moana and Frozen Plus if you are a parent with young kids, and greater percentage of its revenues from those movies, and they have as an extensive back catalog. But everyone makes a lot of their money from 48% from movies. And interestingly, this isn't necessarily first run movies. This is so pay two, three, and library, some nomenclature here. The pay one window is the first premium paid TV or streaming window after theatrical run. So it's on, it comes off the theaters and it goes instantly to a pay one tier streaming service. Sony's movies go to Netflix during this period before they go anywhere else. For example, they have that. Then there's a pay two window. That's a next licensing phase. That's going to be your Stars, Peacock, Hulu, those sorts of things. They get rights to that movie after the pay one window. And then pay three window is there are these wider, more exclusive deals that you have that isn't, you didn't pay for the rights up front, but it can appear on paid TV or these wider deals. And then library is, of course, it is in the back catalog. We own it. It's not something that's in any sort of exclusive window. It's just there. Not surprising, Disney leads on this as well because of its extensive library, but everyone makes about 2/3 of their movie revenue on the non-exclusive deals, the ones that are just there. Into our potpourri section. Study came out, found out that people from the other political party aren't worse drivers, we just dislike them more. And so they put bumper stickers from in party, out party, or a neutral sticker on cars. If the driver made a bad driving maneuver, people were more likely to honk at the driver, and they were more likely to say that person is an angry driver or impute bad motives to, that's that feeling thermometer, bad motives to the person who was doing the bad driving. There was a great line from the paper. They said that we found that out-partisan bumper stickers can lead to honking at bad drivers and lower feeling thermometer ratings of these drivers. This hostility matters because given the ubiquity of bumper stickers, the scenarios played out in our experimental treatment are likely to be frequent occurrences on American roads. So we're taking our political polarization to the streets, as it were. This is not unique. This is a study of fundraising using text messages, asking Greek people to support a child in need. And what they found was, you have your control group here, we just say it's a child. The Roma community in Greece is an oft discriminated against group in Greece, and frankly throughout Europe. And so when they labeled the person as the child as a Roma child, giving dropped in half. And in fact, it was worse if there was a Roma community in the area where the person was giving from. This isn't one of those studies that happen quite frequently, that being around people makes you more likely to support. This was actually the opposite. We also see this in the United States. People are more there's studies of charitable fundraising on platforms like GoFundMe, where those crowdfunding campaigns, people are more likely to give there, or on Kiva if a person is whiter. And people are more likely to give to disaster victims in their own country. So we have our own groups. So how do you break through that? First thing is you don't mention it. You look at the study. Not mentioning what ethnicity the child was performed better than saying it was a Greek child or a Roma child. So, hey, that's one solution. Second is imagine language. Asking your donor to put themselves in the shoes of the person that's across from them actually triggers them thinking like that person. And there have been great studies on this where people are more likely to write their representatives about refugee crisis if they're asked to imagine that they themselves are a refugee. And then the third is intersectional identities. Instead of talking about this is a Roma child or a parent, you say these are parents all the way across the world. This person's a parent like you. And so by putting them in the in-group, you can mitigate the effect of the out-group. People sometimes ask, why do you get so much data for SimioCloud and why do you talk so much about the thousands of variables that go in there and why they're important? Recent study that showed that looking at almost 800 million donations over 10 years, looking at donation patterns among people who own pets, people who don't own pets are more likely to donate more, but less often, looking only among donors. Cat owners donate more than dog owners and donate to more different organizations. So 63% of non-pet owners donated to just one organization, but only 53% of cat owners donated to only one organization. So they're more free with their giving. And pet ownership was the fourth most important factor after income, gender, and education. Now, those are not highly predictive variables, so take that with a grain of salt, but it's still more predictive than age, partisan affiliation, or marital status in this study. Interesting results there. Probably could have put this in the AI section. And GIA's government revenues, they're up to the point where almost half of their revenues for the entire island country come from selling their .ai domain registrations. And then American Public Television is auctioning off 30 Bob Ross paintings to raise money for public broadcasters. They're going to give 100% of the net sales to PBS stations nationwide. So $1.2 billion cut from funding for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. These 30 paintings are estimated to go for, in the millions of dollars, probably about $30,000 for the average painting. We looked it up because if it's $300, then I wouldn't mind owning a genuine Bob Ross, but $30,000, a little bit out of my price range. And by a little bit, this is probably going to go to the people that we were talking about in the Bank of America section. Finally, AOL confirmed that it cut off its dial-up service as of September 30th. So you no longer have mail. And if you do want this, and I did not put this in the presentation for obvious reasons, at this YouTube link, you can get a 10-hour loop of the sound of an AOL dial-up connection. So for those of you who are nostalgic for modem sounds, there you go. Thank you very much for your time. As I mentioned, we are likely going to be phasing out these states of the union at the end of the year. So let me know how you would like to get this information going forward. Right now, we're looking at dedicating ourselves to short videos. You may have seen some of these on our LinkedIn feed and on our YouTube feed, putting more content into our email newsletters and more frequent email newsletters, those sorts of things. But want to meet you where you would consume this content and the content that's helpful for you. So thank you very much for your time today. I'm at nellinger@wearemore.com. Feel free to reach out. Would love to hear from you. Thank you.